In this video, I'm going to talk about how to organize the grown-up stuff in your home to make space for a new one. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Danny and I'm the creator of Practical Mummy Loves Luxury. This is my series of videos about practical tips for new or expecting parents. So if you like videos like these, please be sure to subscribe and also click on the notification bell button below so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Today's video is going to be on how to arrange the grown-up stuff, and this is a follow-on from the last video that I made, which was about the essential baby spaces in your house. So if you missed that last video, in order to get the entire context, I would suggest that you go ahead and watch that one after this. If you did watch my last video, you will remember that I spoke about making sure that 50% of your home is available to your new one. And I will talk about how you can tidy up your home using some elements of the KonMari method. I will also talk about how you can organize critical spaces in your house so that you can operate efficiently. And I will also go through a few of my favorite organization accessories. Any relevant information I'll leave in the description box below. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the KonMari method. So the KonMari method is by Marie Kondo. And this method was really huge in early 2019. I thought everyone knows about this method, but having spoken to people, there are actually a lot of people who don't know this method. So I'm going to explain the gist of it really quickly. With this method, it teaches you to be mindful about your belongings. In order to declutter, one is supposed to go through every single piece of item that you own, and you would only keep it if it makes you really happy or sparks joy. And if it doesn't spark joy, then it's time to let it go. With this method, you end up throwing out things that you don't enjoy and you become relieved of this burden of possessing it. The natural flow-on effect from this is that you suddenly have more room in your home. As an example, so before this, when my closet was so full, I really dreaded doing laundry and ironing and folding my clothes or hanging them up because it was such a pain to try and find a spot for these clean clothes that I have because my closet was so jam-packed. But then I evaluated all my clothes and threw out probably about 50% of it. Most of it was from my teenage years because I'm sentimental and I tend to keep things. But I realized that, moving forward, especially now that I have a baby, I really needed the space for new things in my life. It also sanctions the idea of loving and appreciating everything that you own. This means that you have to be very mindful about what else you let into your life. So before you buy anything, you have to look at the item, think about whether it really makes you happy before you allow it into your life. Not only is it about owning items that spark joy, it is also important to make sure that the space that you live in sparks joy. And this is where the organization comes in. With the KonMari method, most things are placed vertically, which means that it takes up an overall smaller footprint compared to if it was placed flat. I'm going to show you my drawer of scarves now. And as you can see, I folded them up in such a way that they are sort of standing up. And at a single glance, I can see every single scarf that I own. I don't have to do any lifting or rummaging around. And in this situation, there's no scarf that goes into hiding somewhere. And then I forget that I even own it. And it just sits in the drawer, not being used. And as part of this organization process, when you place something vertical, the spot that you then decide to mindfully place it in becomes its home. I like to think of it as a reserved parking spot. So if I remove an item from its spot, there shouldn't be anything else that would replace it unless I get rid of that item or I reorganize things. And when you have a space that functions so well, it will make you happy or spark joy. In order to maximize your space, the KonMari method says to use boxes or bins to make sure that things remain in their space. And I'll show you a few organization accessories that I use later on in the video. I personally think that this method is amazing. I do not follow it to a T because I think it is very extreme. So just like I'm not a Montessori purist, I'm also not a KonMari purist. But just adopting elements of this principle has really made a difference as to how I function in my space. And it's really made me feel much lighter and happier in the space that I live in. Now, if you have Netflix, go and look it up. The name of the series is Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. I'm not actually sure that it's still on Netflix, but if it's not, there are tons of YouTube videos already on this KonMari method. So go ahead and look it up if you really want to have a look at the details of it. So in terms of your belongings that you're going to keep and throw out, only you can decide that. So I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to talk about how you can organize your space in order to be really efficient, especially now that you've got to make a lot of room to accommodate a baby. In my opinion, the bathroom is the most important real estate in your house. That's because you use it to get yourself ready first thing in the morning. If you have this space set up right, it's going to save you the most time. So the way I think about it, and the way I recommend you consider thinking about it, is to think of yourself in layers of getting ready. So for me, in order to get my first layer ready, I need my towel, my toothbrush, and my toothpaste. And then I need my underwear, my makeup, and I also need my feminine hygiene products and toilet paper because nobody wants to get caught out without those things. And at all costs, those items must be in the bathroom. If you've got additional space, then you can fill it up with other things. To make things extra efficient, I put all my morning products in one area, I put all my night products in one area, and my underwear and feminine hygiene products also go in one area. This means that I only ever have to access that one area at one time. I'm not looking this corner for my face lotion, I'm not looking this corner for my face sunscreen, looking that corner for my makeup. So my next layer, which would be my second layer, for me, that would include my outerwear like dresses, tops, bottoms, tights, jewelry, and my watch. So these don't have to stay in my bathroom if there's no space. I would move them to the closet. So once I've got my first layer ready, I would go to my closet to get my second layer ready. The next layer for me, which would be my third layer, would consist of the next outer layer, which is my jacket, my scarves, and my socks. So these three things don't even have to remain in the bedroom if there's no room. You're already decently dressed with your second layer. You can then walk out of your bedroom and go and get dressed in these items. So I would store them even say in the spare bedroom or in a spare closet in the garage or something like that. And my very last layer, which will include things like my sunglasses, my handbag, and my shoes, can be even closer to the door somewhere. Of course, if you have tons of room in your closet or your bedroom, then this system wouldn't really matter. But I'm only suggesting this if you are short on space. And when I talk about my layers, remember they are specific to me. Your first layer may be different from mine. For example, your first layer might include tweezers because you do your eyebrows every morning before you go to work. I know I mentioned that I would put my makeup in the first layer because I do prefer to put my makeup on before my outer clothes on because I tend to drip makeup on my outer clothes and that really annoys me. But if say for example you always prefer to put your outer clothes on first and then your makeup later at a dresser, that's fine as well. So your makeup would probably be your third layer. So go ahead and reflect on your own function and work out a system that is going to be most effective for you. Once you're done with your first thing in the morning routine, you can go ahead and move to other areas of your house and organize it the same way. The next method that I use is to make sure that every single space in your house is used efficiently. Easy access areas should be reserved for frequent access stuff. For myself, I drink coffee 4 times a day. So my coffee machine must be readily accessible together with my coffee. They just sit on the kitchen bench. I don't put them away at all. Same thing with my daughter's milk bottles and formula. She drinks formula 2 to 3 times a day. I consider that frequent access for the kitchen, and therefore all her formula and her milk bottles are sitting on the kitchen bench. On the contrary, I only have guests over once in a while, and therefore the special occasional dinner plates should really go in the top shelf. So to tie this all together, I'm going to start talking about my favorite organization accessories. The first one is bins. I have a lot of bins. I buy most of my bins from Kmart. Now I have a disclaimer in regards to buying bins. When you start buying these organizational bins, the cost of it will build up. Initially, I was reluctant to spend the money, and then I thought about it differently. Technically, these bins are increasing my real estate. And it's cheaper to buy these bins than to go and buy a larger house. And also the happiness that you get from being organized is priceless. My next disclaimer is, as I said before, I do buy my bins from Kmart. I have to say their quality is not 100% consistent, and sometimes their products do break quite quickly. But I keep my receipts and go back and exchange it. They're priced very competitively, so I accept that some of their products will hold up really well and some of their products won't. Of course, there are other shops that make storage bins as well, like Target, Kmart, Big W, so go ahead and explore those as well. In this bin, I keep like my clothes. This specific bin was holding my jeans. But it can hold anything else like, scarves, tops, belts, you name it. Here's another bin that I've got from Kmart. So this is the main reason why I like bins so much. This specific bin holds my hairdryer and my heat protection spray. Because I always use these two together, it makes sense for me to keep them together. And if I was to store my hairdryer and my heat protection spray separately, they would take up a much larger footprint. Number one, the hairdryer is probably going to have to lay flat. And on top of that, the cord is probably going to get tangled with a whole lot of other things in the cabinet. So if I shove these two items together inside, it takes up a much smaller footprint. After some experience of using storage bins to store my things, I have developed a preference for see-through bins. So say for example, this one that I've got here. This is my first aid container. And I think it's really handy because if I open a cupboard, I can identify straight away which my first aid container is because I can see all the band-aids in it. And if you're looking for something, you don't have to instantly open and rummage through it. I would rotate the bin around to see if I can find whichever item I was looking for before opening it. So for example, if I'm looking for my hand warmer, it's sitting right down here at the bottom and I would have spotted it straight away and I would be able to open it up and just go straight for it. Of course, the disadvantage is that it's not particularly aesthetic if you're putting it in a high visibility area, because if you have a number of bins sitting next to each other looking like this, it's going to give off a very cluttered look. So in places where there's very high visibility and you want a very clean look, or you want some privacy, you can go for an opaque bin. Like you might wonder, what is in this bin? But you'll just have to wonder. If you find that buying a lot of bins is going to be very expensive, the alternative is to upcycle cardboard boxes. So this was a box of nappies that I've just wrapped up with this faux marble sticker, and I've just put some of her nappy supplies in here. Pantry organizers from Kmart I think are also really fantastic, and I found that using pantry organizers have practically tripled my pantry space, and I would highly recommend it if you have a very crowded pantry. And I've got here a magazine holder. Magazine holders are not just for holding magazines. What I do is I lay them flat like so, and I use them in my kitchen to hold my cling wrap and my aluminium foil, just like so. For my costume jewelry, I use a toolbox. And as you can see, I have a lot of costume jewelry, but this toolbox works really well for me. For the jewelry that I might be frequently using, I would put them in this ice tray and I will put them closer to where I get ready, and I would rotate these jewelry around as and when I wanted to. Turntables are also really awesome. I'm going to put my favorite turntable on screen. I love turntables because it means that whatever you want is always presented in front of you. You don't have to go and pick things up and lift it over items. This is another one of my favorite turntables, also from Kmart. And as you can see, they suggest that this is used in the kitchen. But I actually use this to store my underwear. Obviously, I've taken all of that out because you don't need to see that. And because this is placed on the lowest shelf, I don't have to bend down to try and look at the back portion of the shelf. I kind of just rotate it and all my options are just presented to me. So my key messages are: declutter and reserve a storage space or a home for everything. Assess how you do things from day to day. Consider your priorities and the order that you do things. Reserve easy access areas for frequent access items. And the very last thing is to maximize your space with storage accessories. And that's all I have for you today. Please leave me a comment to say which is your favorite tip. If you go away and try some of these techniques, I would love for you to come back and leave a comment to say how you've gone with it. If you like this video, please give me a like. If you want to share it, please share it far and wide. And I really look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye. It's empty.